The War for the Tower. It's good. warforthetower.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 7, Episode 16, according to HBO Max, bitches. Christmas Special 2013, The Time of the Doctor. In this episode, the Doctor gets old, and then he sort of backtracks, but then he dies. Sort of, but not really. And now we have eyebrows instead of chin. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Jamie.
So, let's get a rating here. How many degrees of hotness does Matt Smith lose when he's bald? Because
so many.
I really think that 80% of his good looks are attributed solely to that mane of his. And this was evidence for me. I felt so bad. Oh, man.
I think we were all Clara when the hair comes off and she goes, "Whoa!"
And I know that's a bald cap, but it was a really convincing one. Usually you can sort of see the little, like, putty line, you know? And not with him. It really just was like an egg.
There is an actual reason. Before filming for this story began in September 2013, Matt Smith agreed to play a role in the divisive American film Lost River, originally known as How to Catch a Monster. His character was depicted as having a thug-like buzz cut, which meant Smith had to have his signature quiff?
Coif?
Completely shorn off.
I think it's quaff.
Quaff?
Yeah.
That's what I thought too. This says quiff. Quaff. Completely shorn off. By the time the filming was underway for the special, Matt's hair had not grown back enough to fill out the 11th Doctor's hairstyle. It was decided that he would use a hairpiece identical to his coif, which also made it easier for makeup artists to apply aging effects through older-looking hairpieces. In a humorous moment in the episode that references the wig, the Doctor, surprising Clara, removes a wig to reveal he is bald. A latex cap was used to achieve the effect. But I think it worked really well because he didn't have much hair.
Right. Yeah, because if you're somebody that has a bunch of hair and you try and put a bald cap, you just look like you have a bonkers head. Like your whole skull looks like it's just shaped weird and too large. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's fun.
Coincidentally, Karen Gillan had her own head shaved at the time as part of her role in the film Guardians of the Galaxy. She can be seen wearing a wig made out of her own hair for her brief appearance in the special, meaning both Matt and Karen are humorously in wigs.
Okay. Made out of her own hair. So I guess when she was like, okay, I need to get bald for this part, she was like, well, for insurance, keep that hair and make a wig so I can use it.
I think she may have known that she had this coming up, or it might have been to not reveal that she'd shaved her head for the role.
Okay.
Like to keep it secret, because I don't know if it was revealed what part Karen Gillan was playing in Guardians.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So since she was shaving it all off, it would be really easy if you're not like cutting it in stages with all of that hair she had to then, really carefully shave it and use that to make a wig.
Right. Wild. Okay. Neat. Having a wig of your own hair. That feels like next level bougie. That feels like a whole other realm that like none of us are really ever going to be able to achieve. That's special. Damn.
I'm pretty sure, too, that she revealed that she'd shaved her head at Comic-Con where she was wearing what looked like her hair, so that it probably was the same wig, because I've seen the video of it where she takes this off and she's bald underneath, and that's how she revealed that she'd done it.
I wonder, like, if you were, for example, if you found out that you had cancer and you knew you were going to lose your hair, could you preemptively shave your head and get a wig made so that you could wear your own hair throughout
if you're
the time?
rich.
Yeah, like, I wonder how much that costs, you know? Like,
I would
Owen's
imagine
grandmother
quite a
is
lot.
going through that right now, and she got a couple of wigs long before she had her hair falling out. And I never really stopped to think about the fact that, like, perhaps you could. I just don't know how much getting a wig made costs. So
I think it probably helps if you've got really healthy hair.
that's probably it, too, because Karen
Yeah.
Gillan has unparalleled locks.
Yeah. Like, I watched this documentary once called Good Hair that Chris Rock did, and it was all about black women's hair. And one of the segments of this documentary was the wigs that black women wear are made of hair from Indian women.
Right,
And
yeah.
it's like a whole industry in India for women, because, you know, you've seen Indian women's hair. It's incredible. It's always so thick and glossy. And so it's a whole industry there where these women grow their hair out and then cut it really short and it's made into wigs. So, but it has to be healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, wild. I'm just, I'm curious about it. And I think about how unusual I am in that, and this is something that I am also jealous of. Indian women and women in that area often have great eyebrows. Which makes sense because you have very thick hair on your head. You probably have great eyebrows and maybe also great eyelashes. And somehow I got the, like, good hair, but the eyelash and eyebrow fairy totally miss me. And I don't have any of that. On the other hand, I have very little body hair, which is really, like, easy and nice. So,
Yeah, same.
you know, I don't know. It's sort of, which one would I rather? Have amazing eyelashes, but then have to deal with, like, really heavy dark body hair, which is nothing wrong with that. But personally, I'm not somebody who, like, feels comfortable because I am still a slave to patriarchal beauty standards. So, you know, I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, I have really thin eyebrows. I sympathize with Matt Smith, and they they say something about it in the show where she's like, your eyebrows too, and he's like, no, they're just very delicate. Mine are very thin, but I have a natural arch, which I'm really lucky because I went to get my eyebrows done once, and I was like, I want, like, a really defined arch, and the girl was like, you have an arch, and if I define it any further, you're going to have no more eyebrows.
You're
And I
gonna
was
just
like,
look like a bonkers, like, Disney villain.
she's like, they would have to be so thin. Like, you already have a good natural arch. And I was like, all right, fine. But I wanted that like Marilyn Monroe arch. And she's like, you got to start with really thick eyebrows to get that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, I suppose.
Yeah.
I have 90s eyebrows. I did it to myself and they never recovered.
Oh, that
Yep.
sucks.
Tragic. So, okay. This episode is a bit of a mess for me in terms of, like, keeping track of what happened. I can tell you what happened in the first half. And then once we get past that, I feel like it's much more muddled in my memory. I just watched it. Not saying that I watched it like last week and don't remember. I just finished watching it before we got on our call. But I sort of lost the thread somewhere. And I did not have time to go back and rewatch it because we were recording right after. So, does that feel fair to say? Yes. Does it feel like it was all over the place, or is that just me?
You know how... Okay, so you haven't asked yet, but here's how I originally reacted to this episode.
Oh, right, yeah. So I normally say, hi, everybody, I'm Natasha.
And I'm Jamie.
Jamie, what did you think of this episode the first time you watched it?
I hated it.
Really? Okay. I'm surprised.
I thought it was... Well, it wasn't memorable. I remember not really following the plot very well, and also being very insulted on Matt Smith's behalf that he had to spend the majority of his final episode in old age makeup.
Oh.
That really made me mad.
That made you mad?
Yeah. I thought it was insulting.
I don't know why I find that so funny, but I do. It's like you felt like it was a mark upon his beauty or a commentary. Like, well,
no,
we like him because he's the hot one, and you took that away from us, you monsters.
No, I felt like he wasn't able to be as expressive as he normally is. And even though at the time, like, he wasn't my favorite Doctor necessarily, I thought he was so brilliant in the role. I thought, like, the saving grace for me and why I kept watching at the time was because I really loved how he performed the Doctor. And I felt like this was doing him a disservice on his final episode.
Okay.
To put him in this situation where he's under all of this old man makeup and, like, hobbling around and stuff. And I get it for the story, but that's like if David Tennant's last episode had been the one where the Master puts him in a bird cage. Like, how is this a service to your actor to have to spend his last episode as a little 900-year-old bird? I don't know. I don't necessarily still have that opinion. Like, I understand story-wise why they did what they did, but I still think you could have told the story without doing this to him.
Okay.
He still could have gotten old, but isn't the sort of magic of the Doctors that he doesn't... He's already lived extra 200 years since Amy and Rory had met him, and he wasn't physically older.
That's a good point. Didn't think about that. I forgot about how much time is supposed to have passed between when they see each other.
Now, I understand that, like, between when he sends Clara away and then she comes back, like, frozen on the outside of the TARDIS, it's been, like, 300 years. And then he sends her away again, and when she gets back again, it's been another 600 years. So he's now aged, like, another 900 years since we first met him in this phase. I get that. But how do you explain the 200 years that he'd been running around between when he said goodbye to Amy and Rory on their wedding and then showed up in the desert?
Questions that need answers. I mean,
and also, why would you do this to Matt Smith?
Personally, I don't have as much of a problem with the old age makeup just because I feel like he does fairly well with it in what I will again call a Dick Van Dyke fashion. Thinking about Mary Poppins on that one. But, oh man, there was a guy on Nailed It the other night who looked exactly like Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins with the age makeup on. He had little round glasses and was like all like Santa Claus-y except with the bald spot on the top of his head. Anyway, so it didn't like, I totally get what you mean. And probably if I had more like of an investment, I would agree with you and be like, why would you do this? But I think he did fairly well with it. I mean, he's so expressive that I feel like the makeup doesn't hinder too badly. And he doesn't spend that long in it, really, in terms of like overall percentage of time in the episode.
Yeah, I liked this better than I did originally. And again, I was losing my like love for the show at the time.
Right.
So I, just like with the 50th, I went into it with like an already set, like, I don't care. And so the things that bothered me a lot. And that's all I remembered was like, oh, right. The episode where they put Matt Smith in old age makeup. And then I watched it this time and I'm like, it's not bad. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not their best episode, but it's a pretty decent send-off for him. And I still think, like, I would have liked to not have him in the makeup, but it didn't bother me as much.
Okay.
Because I understood it for the story, even though I do have a little hole I had to punch in it.
So, yeah, and I think what surprised me the most, honestly, is that this is like meant to be a Christmas special. Because
Yeah.
the time of the Doctor doesn't sound Christmassy. And the main thing is that there's a town called Christmas. And that
Yeah.
it's like Christmas time in Clara's world.
Yeah,
But
that's
other
it.
than that, it doesn't feel Christmassy at all. And usually they really go all out with the Christmas episodes, you know?
Yeah, it's one of the least Christmassy Christmas episodes.
Which honestly, I can't even get that mad about it because like they already did a Christmas episode this season.
Yeah.
And so I guess they kind of like blew their Christmas wad on that one and they just didn't quite have it anymore. But yeah, and obviously, I mean, it's getting to a point for me where there's barely any point talking about it, but bringing back Cybermen and Daleks again. I mean, I just have to accept that they're never, ever going away. That's always going to be a thing. Every time we're going to do a big set piece confrontation of any kind, they're likely to show up. And I just have to sort of like be fine with that. And I'm not. And I probably won't be. But I recognize that I should be. And will start to just sort of not talk about it anymore. I feel like that's probably the best way to handle it. Though I will say that the Angels Under the Snow and In the Snowstorm was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really effective and really creepy. Especially because, okay, look. Jumping ahead a little here. But when they wind up there, and Clara sees his hand sticking up out of the snow, this bitch just walks over and grabs it. There is no reason to think that's not a person that froze to death under there. Yeah. What are you doing? Don't touch it. What if his finger just broke off in her hand? And it was a person. Like, oh my God. It turned out to actually be a statue. But when she first said, oh, it's just a statue, I wasn't completely convinced because anything's going to feel like a statue when it's frozen solid and buried in snow. I don't know that I trust you to make that judgment call here. And then Claire it turns out it is, but like not really.
She's obviously never seen the movie Alive.
Oh my God. I forgot about that movie. That was such a big deal too when it came out.
Yeah.
Man.
I love that movie.
God. So yeah, I just, let's, I guess start at the beginning, but I'm really going to be like jumping around a lot because for me, the impact of this episode was moments and not the story, really, which I feel like is often the case.
Yeah. There's a lot of, too many ideas syndrome, I feel, in this episode. And one of them being that he has a hologram projector for his clothes.
Yeah, what was that?
I don't know. It's not like we've all been clamoring to see Matt Smith naked.
I heard a bunch of people's voices yell, "Speak for yourself," just now. I don't know where they came for.
Apologies to Matt Smith. I do adore him, but I have really never... I mean, I absolutely love David Tennant and also don't want to see him naked. Too skinny.
It's as if millions of voices suddenly cried out and were suddenly silenced. I just don't understand the thing with him standing there waiting for her buck-ass naked either. And being really excited about it. It's one thing to have like a projection and it goes wrong, but he's very aware that he's naked and like wants to know if she can tell, I guess. Like he's testing it. But there was something about him standing there waiting for her buck naked and being like really happy about it that I was like, this isn't a great look. Can we not?
No. It also is just this is one of those things where guys think this is going to be funny or that girls are going to appreciate it. And we're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yep.
It's like that episode of Friends that's like a flashback where Joey's moving in and Monica invites him over to have some lemonade, and he takes that as her inviting him over for sex. And she's getting him lemonade, and she turns around and he's naked, and she's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And he's like, "You said, do you want some lemonade?" "Oh, did you mean actual lemonade?"
It's just, it's a dick pic in person.
Yes.
It's just, don't do it, guys. It's not charming. And even when it's Matt Smith, it's still not charming. He goes from being charming to mildly creepy, which is hard to happen for a guy like him. So just imagine what those of you who are not as charming as Matt Smith, the effect that it has for you. And I promise you're not as charming as Matt Smith.
He's as charming as he can be in that moment and not be disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not being sexual.
Right.
And I think that's what keeps it from fully going into the creepy side. But the fact that it was written at all, like, there's never been any indicator, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, there's never been any indication that this hologram projector for your clothes has ever been a thing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing I think is the introduction of, like, technology that will be treated as if it's always been a thing. Why do we have to act like that? Can't we, like, pretend that he's trying out something new and have him, like, admit that instead of trying to pretend that this has been happening all along? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't really understand the need to try and retcon a thing when it's absolutely fine for it just to be for this episode because he's bored and doing a weird thing. I mean, that's just sort of how he rolls anyway. So, you know, just let it be. It's a new thing, a new gadget he found. And
I'd like to point out that this was written by Stephen Moffat, so...
And also, all the things that could have been done with that, beyond just, oh, he's naked, whoops. He could have changed clothes every scene into something that is progressively more and more flamboyant and ridiculous. And how funny would that have been?
Yeah.
We don't even have to have a naked joke. We could just have like an Animal Crossing joke where every time you turn around, somebody's pulled their wand out and put on a new outfit. You know, like... I don't know. I just think that would be more interesting and more fun and more true to the character. Because he's somebody who has taken on some odd fashion choices over the course of his time. And I feel like that would be a little homage to that in his last episode.
Yeah,
you know?
that would have been much more fun.
But I also am somebody who just wants to be able to, like, change clothes at the drop of a hat also while not actually changing clothes because, like, getting dressed and undressed is so exhausting. I think back on the time I used to spend at the mall trying stuff on, and I don't know how I had the energy for it.
It's true. I've never really thought about it in that way, but I do hate having to try on clothes.
It's the worst. Ugh. I would love to. It's like on par for me with like teleportation as a power. To just be able to like snap my fingers and be out of my pajamas and in my like gym clothes. And I don't have to struggle with my fucking gym tights for 10 minutes.
That would be a really good superpower.
Yeah.
Not superpower, just power.
I mean, it is super.
Yeah.
Because you could do stuff like suddenly be in a skydiving outfit with a pack on your back if somebody threw you out of a plane and now you've got a parachute. Ta-da! Surprise! You just have to accumulate those outfits and like put them in storage somewhere. But then you have them. You could suddenly be in scuba gear. You know? I feel like that would be actually pretty dope. I like this idea. Nobody take this. Okay.
It's not the kind of superpower that makes you a superhero. Except, you know, to yourself.
I don't know that that's true. Because then you could like get in places because you have the uniform. And you just change into whatever you need for that instant in order to impersonate somebody. It's like low-level Mystique kind of power.
It's also low-level Loki power.
Yeah, see? I don't know. I think you could be a hero. Loki could be used for good.
Apparently, according to this new show that's coming.
I I have very mixed feelings about that show. We're not talking about that. Okay, we're not doing that. We're going back to this because we are just already starting down the path that we always do. All right, so he's got a Cyberman head.
Yes, he found it at a market.
This feels not on brand to me.
Well, that also was a complaint I had back when I first saw this.
And like, the whole conceit of this grew on me over time. But initially, I was just like, what are we doing? This is kind of fucked up. Like, that used to be a person. You know? But once he like dies, I was genuinely, that was a sad moment that I thought was done really well.
I was going to say that. The performance he gives when Handles dies is really good.
Yep.
Just the line readings and his, like, the way he, like, shook it, like, that was really effective. I was more emotional about this fucking Cyberman head than anything else that happened in the episode.
Yeah, I would say that. I would agree with that. Which is kind
of like, all on Matt Smith.
It's sort of mean to say that because there's like this whole thing where it's like he abandoned Clara and whatnot, and she's super sad. The scene with her and her grandma, that was another one that kind of got me.
That one was really good too.
It made me think of
if
like.
We're gonna... Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just when the conversation with her grandmother reminded me of when I used to work at the bank. And something that we would often deal with was people who had shared accounts coming in, and one of the two of them had died. And they were having to figure out how to get that person's name off of the account or move the money or whatever. And more than once, I was talking to the person myself who was like sharing that their partner had died, and it was just devastating. And I would have to like run in the back and just cry because you could see that these people were barely holding it together. It was like they were sleepwalking sometimes. One guy like straight up just left his whole wallet on the counter, and I had to grab it and run out after him. And he like apologized and said, I don't know what I'm doing. She used to take care of all of this, and I feel like I'm walking around with my eyes closed. I'm so sorry. And it was, and like, he got in his car and sat behind the wheel just staring as I went back inside and didn't like pull out or anything. It was just really awful. And the one that she reminds me of is this woman who came in and said, well, my husband passed away. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she said, well, it's all right. We were together for 62 years and we had a wonderful time.
That's how my grandmother was when my grandfather died.
Just like, I can't even say it now and not like get teary-eyed. Ugh. She was so sincere about it. And it was like, there was so much like joy and love, but also that deep grief when she said it. And it was just, ugh. And yeah, that was definitely one where I like ran him back and just like bawled for a minute. Ugh.
I worked at MetLife. And I was in there, I was in a call center, and I think it was annuities. So we would get calls about a lot of things to do with these accounts, but sometimes, and we were warned during training, that sometimes it's going to be because someone passed away. So a member of their family is going to be calling to find out what to do about these annuities.
Right.
And I was dreading that because I didn't know how I was going to handle it. And my first call was someone whose husband had just died. And she was crying, and I started crying on the phone. And then after, and we weren't supposed to like turn off our line. We were supposed to wait for the next call, but I had to like turn off my line and just sit there and cry because I didn't know, I had no frame of reference of how to handle this. It was hard. And that was over the phone. So I can't imagine having to have a face-to-face conversation with somebody about that. It's got to be rough.
Yeah. I am glad that I didn't have to run into it more often, just being a teller. I often was sidestepped. People would know I couldn't really do something, so they'd go right to the officer, which was where I would have to take them anyway. So I ran into it far less than I would have if my job were different. And I just think sometimes about how when I was working there, my aim was to stay at the bank and continue working there and work my way up because I never thought I would be podcasting full time ever. And I could not have handled it. I couldn't have done it. I would not have been good at that job. It would not have been good for me at all. But anyway, so he's got this head. Sorry.
Are we going to go scene by scene?
I was just going to sort of start off with like him following the signal, and then we wouldn't have to necessarily go scene by scene, but just start at the actual beginning of the thing.
Okay.
And yeah, it turns out that there is this signal going out that is drawing all of these powers, all of these beings, and what it turns out it is, there is a crack in reality remaining from the like instability that happened before with the whole thing with the silence. Mm-hmm. And it is Gallifrey trying to break through and come back to our universe from a different one. Mm-hmm. And the signal they're sending through, along with, as we find out, a truth force,
I think is what they call it.
Okay. Is asking Doctor Who so that when he answers, they will know that it is safe to come through.
Right, when he answers his actual name. Right.
And one of the only other contacts that we have is a woman named Tasha, who he calls Tash. And I had forgotten how people, when I was like in London, didn't say Tosh with the long A. They said Natasha, and I found it really weird. And that happens a bunch this time, and I was like a little bit triggered by it. Didn't like it. Oh my God, Owen's mom called me Nat over Christmas. Let me tell you, I shut that shit down.
Didn't somebody was calling you that in it was in the Mighty Network.
Somebody has done it on the Mighty Network. Somebody has done it on Twitter. And both times I've been like, we are not. I am not an insect, sir. No. I did not consent to this. You can do Natasha. You can do Tasha. I'll even deal with Tasha. I'll even deal with Tosh. Tosh doesn't bother me either. But no Nats. No
I think
Surrey Bob.
Rashawn refers to as Tosh sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Like, I think Brendan used to. I don't think Owen does. I don't feel like I think he calls me by my full name whenever he's talking about me. But yeah, nah. And what's funny is, like, if you pronounce it the way that, like, you say Natasha, but then Nat, well, really you should say Nut. And I don't like that either. That's not happening. So.
Well, that's what I'm going to call you from now on.
I am nut free.
Hey, what's up, Nut?
Oh, God. So, at the same time that this whole thing is happening with this signal, he gets like an emergency call from Clara over his regular phone that's outside that he needs to get like linked to the main console. And that winds up being the thing that Handel says like last. And honestly, that was super heartbreaking and really well done. And I just was so sad.
Because he tells him to pick a number and apply that number to minutes. And that's when you need to remind me to reroute the phone.
Right.
And apparently, Handel's picked 600 years from now, or 900 years from now.
I love it. I love that. So, like, that really feels like something an iPhone would do. It would just accidentally, they're very good at a lot of things, but when you try and be like, hey, Siri, remind me of such and such, it'll be like automatically set it up to remind you like the next day at 5:30 a.m. and it wakes you up from a dead sleep yelling at you, turn the laundry over, and you're just like, oh God, Siri, no. So I thought that worked out really well. But yeah, Clara is making Christmas dinner and needs an emergency boyfriend to pretend for her parents and grandmother that she is in a relationship. Have you ever felt the need to invent a significant other because of family? I guess you wouldn't, because you've like been with Jason a long time.
Yeah, but even before that, I didn't date a lot. Mm-hmm. So no, like if anybody in my family asked, I was just like, no, I don't have a boyfriend.
Yeah, I wonder, how old is Clara supposed to be? Have we found that out?
Not entirely. I'm guessing she's supposed to be like 23. Like, she's out of school. She's got a job as a teacher, so she had to have gone to university.
I just don't... I feel like she's a bit young to feel like she has to do this sort of thing already. I feel like people... When I think about, like, the stereotype in wanting to pretend that you have a relationship, it's supposed to be happening around the time that all of your other friends are getting married and having kids, and your family's beginning to wonder why you haven't, and yada, yada, yada. And that feels much more like late 20s, early 30s. But I'm speaking completely from the perspective of somebody who only understands this pressure from, like, media. Because I've never really had this pressure put on me, because I have been in relationships for, like, the past 20 years straight.
Right, which is that's a different situation for you, because you've kind of been a serial monogamous.
Yeah. And
I was single more often than not.
The only thing I've had really is like kids. And that hasn't been too bad, but it's definitely happened.
Yeah, that's happened more often. And especially like, well, by the time I got together with Jason, everybody in my family pretty much understood I had no plans on ever having kids. So those questions stopped. But then it was the immediate, when are you guys going to get married? And we'd be like, I'm like, we're not? I don't know. It's not something that's important to either of us. So my mom still asks. We've been together 11 years. And my mom's like, I mean, are you guys ever going to, like, I don't know. Sorry, dropped my phone.
You got so angry.
It slammed the desk. So I have a couple of things I wanted to bring up about Clara and her family.
Okay.
One is mostly about Clara. There's some weird moments in here with the doctor and Clara, and Clara towards the doctor, where we've talked before where it doesn't seem like they're pushing any kind of romantic angle with these two.
Right.
Like he's made comments that, make you think he thinks she's pretty. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, there hasn't been that sort of energy focused on these two.
Right.
And in this episode, it's like they're trying to. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand why. Because it feels really forced.
Look, they kind of like toyed with this in another episode. This isn't the very first time.
Was it the terrible Crimson Horror one?
Maybe.
No. Which one?
I don't remember, but I remember that it came up. Like we haven't recorded in like 3 weeks. Yeah. And in that time, we recorded once, and before that I was on vacation for 2 weeks. So we've recorded once in like a month and a half.
Yeah.
So I don't remember, but I know that it came up, and I mentioned it felt like the first time that they were sort of doing that and having there be like a question of attraction between the two of them. And I am very disappointed that they had, when she's like speaking the truth, they have her say how it's because she fancies him.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even an implication anymore. They're just straight up saying it. And I find that to be a huge bummer personally, because even if it was the doctor was sort of into her, then I could just sort of enjoy that hasn't happened before. The doctor's never really been into one of his companions who hasn't seemed to feel that way back. Mm-hmm. And instead I get another, oh, well, I'm sort of into him, actually. Surprise.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I had a problem with that too. The other thing I had a problem with was I feel like this dynamic between Clara and her father and this woman who it's implied is his father's girlfriend feels very weird considering the grand love story we were given at the beginning of Clara being the companion about her parents. I know her mom died, but it's completely unmentioned. Who is this Linda woman?
I forgot
Why is she
about
harassing?
that.
Well, maybe that's what Stephen Moffat was hoping for, because it seems like he did too.
Yeah, I had completely forgotten about that whole thing. And how did our mother die?
She had cancer or something. They don't really say. She got sick.
Okay. Yeah, I completely forgot.
But, you know, we see the scene of them at the grave, at the funeral, because the doctor was still trying to figure out who Clara was.
Right.
It wasn't that long ago. Mm-hmm. Like, she looks like Clara. Like, maybe a couple of years. So, I don't know. The way her father was acting didn't feel like the way he was portrayed earlier, and it's not the same actor anyway. And then this random woman who is, like, pushing, like, relationship stuff onto Clara. I don't know. It just all sat very poorly with me and felt like Stephen Moffat, like, more proof that he was not really invested in the story any of the stories he told leading up to the 50th. Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't seem to remember the details of the story he told.
I think that's the thing that's, like, sort of getting me here is the realization, because I just didn't even quite notice that it's mentioned that's not her mother. I just, like, felt it being her mother the whole scene. And so her being extremely pushy about relationships is gross enough with it being her mom, but expected to a point. It being a stepmom makes it so much grosser. Like, who are you? Get the fuck out of here. Ew.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe I didn't notice that. I completely forgot. Well, it just goes to show how little that sank in for me, because it just doesn't really feel that important. So I guess it didn't feel important to him either.
Yeah. And luckily, there's not a whole lot of... The scene with the grandmother was a hugely redeeming factor of having quite as much of this family dynamic as they did put in this. Mm-hmm. But I could have done without just about all of it.
I will tell you one thing that's not important, but that I was surprised isn't done. I thought she was going to make a souffle for sure. She doesn't make a souffle. She's cooking the whole time.
Also, it hasn't been established that Clara can't cook, because we've seen her cooking quite a bit. And suddenly she doesn't know how to cook a turkey. And, okay, last complaint.
That turkey is raw.
That turkey, when she comes back with it, when it's supposed to be finished,
is raw.
Was not finished.
Y'all, let's have a talk, everybody. Sit down. We need to discuss something. White people, y'all need to learn how to cook meat. Y'all don't get what to do with it. First of all, you don't season that shit at all. And look, if this doesn't apply to you, I don't want to hear it. Fine, it doesn't apply to you. Shut up. You don't season it. You don't brown it properly. And you cook the shit out of stuff otherwise. And it's dry as hell. That's the reason most people don't like turkey, is because it's always overcooked. Don't do it. Cook it breast down for the first few hours. That's my advice. But
that's the right advice.
This turkey is what Owen's family's Thanksgiving turkey looked like the first year that I had Thanksgiving with them. And ever since, I have been responsible for making the turkey because I can't handle it. A turkey that's properly cooked should look like...
It should be golden.
Rachel Dolezal. That's what it should look like. And these anemic, how does that happen? How do you get shit dried out because it's cooked too long, and yet you also manage to not caramelize it at all?
It's like it's not being cooked on a high enough heat.
Exactly. It's just being cooked too long, but on like 300.
Like, I'm a vegetarian, but one year I made the turkey for Thanksgiving for my roommates. I just read a bunch of stuff on the internet to make sure that I understood what I was supposed to be doing, because I'd never made a turkey before and I no longer ate it. I called my mom, because my mom always made pretty good turkey. And I think I called my aunt or my dad and was like, I just need to make sure. And I followed all the instructions and was told that it was great. And my roommates would not have lied, because they would have made very clear to me that it sucked if it had. It's not hard.
It's not hard. The thing is that people look for the instructions in the wrong places. People go to like the Butterball website to find out how to... Y'all, look. First of all, if you're getting a Butterball turkey, that's your first mistake, because that shit's been frozen for 4 years. And all of the moisture is gone anyway.
Poor bird.
Start off with like a decent quality turkey. That's just step one. But there are a lot of like discussions out there on the best way to cook a turkey. Obviously, there's the frying. I've never fried a turkey. I am certain it tastes best out of everything, because frying anything is the best tasting version of that thing. And that's just facts. But there's a lot of study out there from people who know what they're doing with cooking about how to roast. I didn't just spring fully from the womb knowing how to cook a turkey. I researched it and made a lot of like comparisons with different instructions and the principles behind it and figured it out. I think that's the thing that I find the most frustrating, is people won't know how to do something, which is fine, but they assume that the people who do know are simply like inherently
magicians.
Better at it. And it's like, no, I just put the effort into finding out from sources that are trustworthy and have done a lot of research on it. Like, that's what Cooks Illustrated is for, is they try how to, like, make a fucking chocolate chip cookie 13 ways. And they're like, all right, so we did all of this, and you can pick which one looks the best to you. And I'm like, oh, good. I will brown the butter and use less flour. Thank you, Cooks Illustrated. Just go out and find the information. It's out there, y'all. My telling you to cook it breast down, that's not something I made up. I found out that people do that, and it's a good idea, and it works. It's fine.
My aunt did that accidentally, and when they ate the turkey, they were like, oh my God, this is the best turkey we've had.
Yep.
And it was because she cooked it upside down from what you would normally do.
Yep. And you do have to flip it towards the end if you want any browning on the breast. And that can be a huge pain, I won't lie. Flipping a giant, like, 400-degree turkey is not easy. But you wind up with, like, everybody in my families has always fought over, like, the dark meat, because it's what's actually got some moisture to it. And if you cook it breast down, that doesn't wind up being such a problem. Breast meat isn't terrible.
On Thanksgiving, Padma Lakshmi made these videos on Instagram of her turkey when she was making it. And she soaked it overnight. She brined it in buttermilk and salt.
Buttermilk, interesting.
Yeah. And then she had this video of all of the stuff she stuffed it with, which was onions and citrus and tons of peppercorns and garlic and all kinds of stuff. I have not eaten meat in 20 something years, and I watched her just getting this turkey prepared, and I was like, I have not been tempted to eat turkey forever, but I want to eat that turkey because all of this stuff that she was doing to it just to prepare it I've never seen somebody stuff a turkey not with stuffing.
So many people are against that. Personally,
it was like apples and oranges and onions and garlic and big sprigs of rosemary, and I was just like, this is the most incredible turkey ever.
Yep.
and I want to eat it.
Fresh herbs are major for me in seasoning a turkey. Like, I do use, powdered dry herbs for the stuffing and stuff. But when it comes to, and probably it would be even better if I didn't for that, but it's just easier. But in terms of like putting in the cavity, but I also stuff my turkey with stuffing, which is a thing that most people say not to do anymore for health reasons. But I'm not a coward, so I do it anyway.
I'll have to send you the video of what Padma did, just because you might want to try her thing next year. Because, man, it just looked amazing.
I just don't want to be cooking a fucking turkey next year at all, I'll be honest. We're going to be getting married like 4 days later. I don't want to I don't want to be cooking a turkey.
Well, maybe the year after then.
Yeah. Although we did buy our turkey like almost fully cooked from Whole Foods this year. And I don't know if we are going to do that 2 years in a row. We'll see. Anyway. Hi, everybody.
Anyway, that's the extent of my complaints about the stuff with Clara's family. Is the couple of family complaints, and then that turkey was just a travesty.
I really appreciate that you are also somebody who gets really caught up in that sort of thing.
It's because I love food.
Yeah, same.
And even though I don't eat meat, I can look at it and be like, that looks great. Mm-hmm. I won't eat it, but it looks great. And this is like, it's also, I don't know, that poor bird. That bird died, and that's what you did to it?
Yeah.
Respect it.
Yep, agreed. I really did too. I know that it can feel like we're doing this to be funny, but it was genuinely so distracting every time I saw that turkey. Like, she's out here, she's yelling at him, please come to Christmas dinner, be my boyfriend for my family. And she's putting potatoes and stuff into the oven with the turkey that is clearly still raw. Those potatoes are going to be burned to a crisp by the time that turkey is done. Or they're going to be cold as rocks. You don't, the turkey should have been in the oven cooking from 4 a.m, probably.
Yeah.
Then
she wants him to use the TARDIS to time travel so that she can get a few more hours on this turkey. And he's like, oh, just throw it in the time vortex. Like, what the fuck? Are you aging it? What are you doing? Because when it came out, it didn't look good.
It did not look good at all. All that happened was that was all the time, like, that it was sitting on the counter. It wasn't actually in the oven for that time.
Nope.
So anyway, she winds up with him, on the, first he comes to meet her family. It turns out that he looks naked to them. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't understand, it took me so long to get what was happening there, because they're acting really weird with him, and her grandmother is just like, what's up?
Hello. I thought at first that the grandma was the same little old lady who was flirting with the 10th Doctor in his last episode when Wilf was, looking for him, and he was in that little old people's group.
Oh, that would have been pretty good, actually.
But I thought it was her, and I was like, oh, this is going to be really interesting, and I don't remember that it was the same lady, and then it wasn't the same lady.
Oops. So he pulls her onto the TARDIS to use the time machine to cook the turkey. And, of course, that's not all that happens. They wind up in that same area where everybody's responding to this signal. And he is telling her how he's getting ready to go to church. And apparently, they are going to... you have to be naked. But they're going to be wearing... what do you call them? To pretend that they're naked, even though they are clothed, right?
They're wearing... they've got those hologram projection things.
To make it look like they are clothed when they're actually naked?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was the reverse, that he was pretending to be naked.
No, because
she was actually clothed. Okay.
She was like, I just feel naked. And he's like, you just have to not think about it.
Why?
She's like cold.
Who do these holograms work on then?
I guess everyone. Except for Tasha.
Yeah, because she's the one who calls him out for it.
Yeah.
But and she's also the one who says something like, we've all been trained to see through them. But she makes him take it off. And I think that's what made me think that he was pretending to be naked. Was she was calling out the fact that he hadn't committed completely and shown up naked. That she was like, I can tell that you're only half-assing this. But instead, I guess she's being like, why are you pretending to have clothes on when I can see that you aren't wearing any and it's pointless to pretend?
Yeah, it's because being naked is a form of respect in this papal mainframe.
Right.
But, so the clothes are holograms, but she can see right through it. I guess everybody else probably can too. I don't know. But she's like, what are you doing? You know, I can see through it.
Well, I am unsure how I feel about this whole tradition. It appears that everybody there must also be using this sort of hologram because everybody looks like they're also wearing clothes. It's
unclear. I don't know if it's just that the visitors to the papal mainframe are supposed to be naked. I don't know. Again, why are we doing this?
For the fun.
Was it fun, though?
That's the thing. It just felt confusing. It could have been fun. I maintain that this is an interesting idea.
Too many ideas in this episode, that's all.
Yeah. You know, I feel personally like this was a really missed opportunity, and I'm a little sad about it. Because I think that it could have been really interesting.
Yeah, like, I get it, Stephen Moffat. You've got a lot of ideas. You've made that very clear to us with all of your shows and stuff. You've got a lot of ideas. But you don't have to put them all in one episode, especially when you know that you've got another season coming, and you've got this new Doctor who has a whole different dynamic. And how funny would it have been? Well, you don't know yet because you don't know him. But you've seen him. If it's him that is walking around looking naked to everybody.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Save it for the 12th Doctor.
So there goes another thing. He claims he can only regenerate 13 times.
Yes.
Is this something that's been established?
Yes.
When has this been mentioned?
I don't know if it's expressly been mentioned in this new Doctor Who, but it is something that was established in old Doctor Who. And so there's an explanation of what happens here so that they could continue on, because they've reached their limit due to the things that they've done with the 10th Doctor using some of his regeneration energy to regenerate into the same face, same body. So he used up a cycle there. And then there was a whole cycle that nobody knew about where he was the War Doctor. So that actually makes this Doctor the 13th Doctor, not the 11th. Because 10 was 10 twice. And then there was a War Doctor. So when they did these things, they had to answer for it for old Doctor Who fans, I'm assuming, because there's somewhere in the history it's been said that you only get to regenerate 13 times. And when it's the first or second Doctor, you're not too worried about that 13th time. But now you're 7 seasons into the reboot, and you're at the end. So what are you going to do? So they have this whole thing with Gallifrey basically giving him a whole new cycle. Like a whole new regeneration cycle. So now he can regenerate another 13 times.
Huh. Okay. Okay. Because again, this seemed like new information to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's been talked about in this reboot at all. That there's only, like the Doctor has said, I can't do this. I don't remember. I'm sure he said something about there's, it's not an endless thing, regeneration. Or maybe he hasn't.
I don't remember. I feel like if he had said it can't go on forever, I would specifically have mentioned it and been like, wait, what does he mean by that? But a lot of stuff gets sort of thrown out that I don't decide to focus on. So I don't know.
I can't remember, but I know that I knew that, like, when the War Doctor was revealed, I know that I was thinking, like, so that means... And I wasn't thinking about 10 using a regeneration to stay 10. Because I think that was he does it with the hand, something with the hand. I can't remember all the details, but that's when it happened. I know when the War Doctor's revealed, I remember thinking, well, that means that there's only one more time. That 11 is actually 12. And that means there's only one more time that he can regenerate. So I must have learned it somewhere, but I don't know if I learned it from the show or if I learned it because I was involved with the fandom. So I read it somewhere.
Right. Huh. Okay. So what is Silence doing here? What is the deal with them and the Papal mainframe?
Okay, I do have something about that. Let me see.
I will say that I was excited to see them again, but then they don't really factor in much at all. There's a really neat moment with them and Clara, and I got kind of excited because I thought maybe they were going to turn out to be like the major villains this episode, but not really.
The Silents are revealed to be high-ranking confessional priests of the Papal mainframe, later the Church of the Silents, which were genetically engineered to allow people to confess their sins without remembering doing so, accomplished by fashioning the priests so anyone looking at them would forget their encounter when they looked away. And then, where is it? I read it, but I might not have copied and pasted it. There were some that broke off with Madame Kevorkian. Kevorkian is not her name. Here it is. It is learned that Madame Kavarian led a rogue faction of the Church of the Silents that broke off and traveled back along the Doctor's timeline, trying to stop him from reaching Trenzalore and answering the first question. Their actions failed, and in that caused the events that they feared to occur, trying to blow the TARDIS up. It caused the cracks to appear, and the assassin they manufactured to kill the Doctor, River Song, ended up being the Doctor's wife and ally. The Doctor calls this the Destiny Trap. You can't change history if you're already a part of it.
Okay.
So there were these rogue priests who broke off with Eye Patch and went traveling back along the Doctor's timeline to stop him from getting to this place where it would allow the Time Lords back.
Right. Okay. And Silence had to be part of that because... Why?
Well, because they look cool.
Because it feels like Silence wanted the world to end. Didn't they?
They said silence will fall when the question is answered. And we didn't know what the question was.
So this is us getting the answer to that from 2 seasons back.
Yes.
Was that the plan?
Who knows?
That is unsatisfying.
I would like to say yes, but I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I'm going to say that that having the silence in this episode in a different capacity where they're not actually bad was a good twist. But to make it make sense, the Doctor had to give an explanation of who those other silents were and what they were doing, because and even that is unnecessary because they're a creature, they're a race of creatures. So just because those guys were bad doesn't mean these guys are.
Right.
There were some Ood that wanted to kill everyone, and there were some Oods that are like, I'm happy to serve.
Yeah, I guess that's true. They just seemed so threatening when they were coming at Clara. But we don't actually know what they intended. They were just stalking at her very slowly and creepily, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. They just might not know what, body language means.
Right. And also, that was filmed and played to feel threatening because we have had experience with them before, and we know when you look away from them, you're not going to remember.
Right.
Which makes them scarier.
All right. Weird.
But I do like the idea of them being these confessional priests. Because how great is it, or not, I don't know, I'm not Catholic, so I don't know how well confession works from easing your burdens. But if you can ease your burdens and then forget you did it, so you don't really, do you still feel guilty about it or whatever it is? Or is that still stuck with you? I don't know.
Do they take away the memory of having done it?
You forget that you confessed.
Right, which I feel like the confession's supposed to be the part that eases your mind. I
guess that's true. Maybe they would be more effective in law enforcement.
Oh, shit.
You confess your crimes and you look away, you forgot you did it, and you're like, gotcha!
Oh, my God. What a weird whole thing this is. All right. This whole idea. This woman too, by the way, this actress who plays, what is her title? Patience? No.
Tasha?
But that's not her title, that's her name.
She's the, Mother Superius.
Mother Superius. Come on, guys. Well, regardless, I kept thinking she was Eva Green. And then having to be like, oh, no, it's not. It's not her. And then right away, it's Eva Green. No, it's not Eva Green, Natasha. Like over and over again throughout. She
does have a very Eva Green look to her. And I was watching her thinking like, why do I know her? And then when I looked her up, I thought I would have recognized her from something where she had a bigger role, but she was on Fringe for like 5 episodes. So that must be why she looks familiar to me, or she may just have that kind of face that looks similar enough to other actresses.
Yeah.
She's very beautiful.
Oh, yeah, totally. And they have very good chemistry. I was honestly a little sad that things get wrapped up between the two of them because I really love the energy between them, you know? Matt Smith seems to go for older women. There's just a vibe there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the best chemistry he's had on this show is with River Song.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, let's see, I'm trying to figure out, because we've talked so much about how that all works that there's probably not a need to go into too much detail with that further. I talked about the angels and being buried in the snow and that being a good scene. Yeah,
so they get transported down to this planet, which the papal mainframe are shielding from everybody else.
Right.
And she sends him down there, but he doesn't have his TARDIS. And when he gets there and realizes that the crack in time is there and isn't really sure yet what's trying to come through, he does have his TARDIS. He calls a TARDIS with the key that he'd hidden in his wig.
Right. Because she tries to take the key away from him before he goes.
Yeah.
Because why? Right.
Because she can see through his pretend clothes.
But why doesn't she want him to be able to access his TARDIS?
I don't know, because she's trying to control the situation. I mean, she is doing a good thing here by trying to make sure that all of these other, bad guys don't get to this planet because they don't know they can't decipher this signal, but it's making everybody except the Doctor scared. And so she's basically like, they found it first, and she's trying to keep she knows that there's life down there. She's trying to keep all of these like Daleks and shit from going down there. So I don't know why she keeps his TARDIS, probably just so we could have the reveal that he gave her a decoy key.
Okay. Because that was the thing that I got hung up on, was her insistence that he not have the TARDIS. It felt to me like that was a clear danger sign. You know, like, that's, to me, a signal that she doesn't want you to be able to get away. And it made me feel like this was a bad idea and a trap. And I still don't really understand how it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? I don't
really have an explanation of why, other than she just wants to control. She didn't want him to stay down there because she said you have an hour.
I don't understand this whole situation, I guess. To be honest.
I don't really either, to be honest. But he does call the TARDIS. That's when we see him with his bald head and Clara talking about how his ears stick out like rocket fins. Yeah.
Man, everybody who chooses to be the Doctor better be okay with it being in the script that you look weird.
But he also is really, like,
he takes that as a compliment.
Yeah.
100%.
And I was looking at him and I was like, it's a pretty fair assessment.
I mean, without the hair, because the hair is so full.
Yeah.
That you, like, it takes up so much space that it sort of camouflages how far the ears stick out. You know? So then when it's gone, there's like a full 1.5 inches above each ear that's not filled with hair. And you're just like, well, what is going on then?
So they get there, they come across the couple and, you know, speak a bunch of truths that they weren't speaking before. And then they find this crack. And he sends Clara back home.
Right.
And he realizes, like, whatever is happening here, I'm going to protect this town from it. Because the last time, something trying to get through that crack was bad.
Right.
So he assumes it's bad.
I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah. And then he just hangs out there for 300 years, being their sheriff and getting to know the people, having fun with kids.
So he stays here because this is not fixable, right? And basically you just have to wait for everybody to come through?
Well, they still don't know what the message is. He figures out that someone is on the other side of this crack trying to break into their universe from a separate one through the weakest point. However, it isn't just someone breaking in, it's someone breaking back in. So he's trying to figure out where the message was from. Earlier, when they got to this, when he was trying to figure out what this planet was, Handels told him it was Gallifrey. And he was like, it's not.
Right.
I know what Gallifrey looks like. So he's still trying to figure out why Handels would say that. And he just doesn't want to let anything bad through. He just wants to protect these people.
Okay. I think that was part of it, that so he's worried that it's not just Gallifrey that's going to come through the crack.
He doesn't think it's Gallifrey on the other side until the question comes through.
I thought the question came through pretty early.
Hold on. I think you're right. They find out the answer, or they find out what that question is, and that's when he sends Clara back.
Yeah. And then he tells
her. Yeah, he tells her to go put this in the charger, the sonic screwdriver charger or whatever. And but when she does that, the TARDIS goes on autopilot and returns to where the last place it was, which is her.
Right. But so he knew that Gallifrey was on the other side when he chose to stay.
I'm not sure why he doesn't want it to come through.
Yeah.
I mean, we left the 50th episode with him saying I'm going to find Gallifrey again. And now he has. But he doesn't want it. I don't know.
I am confused. You know what? It probably doesn't matter. It's fine. I'm just going to back away.
This says, horrified, let's see. If the Doctor speaks his real name, the Time Lords will know they're in the right place to come through, and all the alien species above will descend on the planet and begin the new Time War.
But they're descending already. Like, we see them.
They're trying
nearby.
to get. Yeah, they're up there, but they're being blocked from getting through because of the papal mainframe. They're keeping them at bay.
And so
but
it's just
somehow
like some
finding
are
ways
managing to get through anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're finding ways around it. Like later we see a Cyberman, but he's made out of wood. It's because it was blocking anything with technology or whatever to get through, and this wooden one manages to get through. The only technology it has is on its little gun arm.
Okay. All right. Look, guys, what can I say? There's a lot that feel like I barely can hold it all together in my head because there's so many moving parts that don't really totally work. So, just have to sort of make the best of it.
This says, Tasha contacts the Doctor through a hologram projected in the sky, telling him the return of the Time Lords cannot happen. She's aware that this would restart the Time War again, which, as a peacekeeper, the Church cannot allow. The Doctor refuses to withdraw and let his enemies destroy the planet. He asks her to answer one last question, the name of the planet he's on, and then she reveals the planet is Trenzalore. He knows that he's supposed to die there. So that's also part of the reason that he stays. He chooses to stand his ground on Trenzalore and use his sonic screwdriver to begin ringing the clock tower bell and vigilance. And that's when he declares himself the sheriff and defend them from the attackers above.
Huh. Okay. So he stays there for how long is it? 600 years?
So for 300 years, he's defending Trenzalore from the enemies that managed to get through.
Right.
And then that's when Clara comes back, right? Or no, does she not come back till he's really old?
No, she comes back once because she got caught in a weird time thing, according to him.
Well, he sent the TARDIS back.
Right.
And she was supposed to, she's supposed to leave the TARDIS, and then it was supposed to come back to him, but she grabbed onto it.
Right.
So by the time it comes back to him, it's been 300 years, and she's been hanging on the outside of it.
Right. And so she just says, I was in space, in this really sort of shell-shocked way. And he knows what happened.
He says you were in the time vortex.
Right. And then she goes away again because he drops her off and pretends that he's never going to leave her and lies straight to her face and then just bails. She's heartbroken, has the moment with her grandma. And then she hears the TARDIS again and she thinks it's him. But it's Tasha. And she has summoned Clara to be with the Doctor in his dying moments. Because he shouldn't die alone. And that was a big tease. I was like, that's really mean. And yeah, he is... The first time that she comes back, he's like middle-aged. And when he comes back the next time, he has straight up like wispy cotton candy hair. And, is using a cane and whatnot. He looks like, what's his face in Amadeus a little bit. And he looks so, I'm pretty impressed with the aging makeup. I feel like it's come a long way. Aging makeup used to just be, you just had to understand that's what it was intended to look like, but it never actually looked like aging. He looks aged. There's moments where I'm just like, that doesn't quite, but mostly it's pretty good. And what I would really enjoy is a little online database of images of actors who have been aged up with makeup next to their actual photo of them at that age. eventually. To see how well they were able to mimic what they, like, how accurate was it to what that person actually wound up looking like, you know? Because there's no really predicting what parts of your face are going to begin to slide down first, or, you know. But I would love to see how accurate this is to how Matt Smith winds up looking when he's like 80 years old, you know?
That's how I feel about Chris Evans in Endgame.
Yeah.
Because when old Steve comes out, my first thought was, oh, they got an old actor who has a real Chris Evans look to him. And then I heard him speak, and I was like, oh my God, that's some really good old age makeup.
I wonder how much is CGI too.
None of it, from what I understand.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. But they also, I mean, it just looked so realistic because it wasn't completely full of wrinkles. It was aged makeup, but it looked like a normal person, not what somebody assumes you're going to just be a, you know, one of those Sphinx cats.
Those are great. That's a goal for me, honestly.
But they went with the lines of his face. They went with his already existing smile lines and things like that just made it look really natural. Right. And I think with the Matt Smith makeup, obviously, how do you guess what somebody 900 years old might look like? So there's a lot of wrinkles on there, but it's not necessarily in a bad way.
Yeah, I like this though. I didn't expect, normally with the aging thing, it can feel very, like, it felt real to me, both because the makeup is done really well, and the actress playing Clara does, like, the grief thing very well. I feel like she got more to do this episode than she normally does. Yeah. And she was allowed to sort of stretch a bit more. So what happens is he's basically about to, like, go out to his death, and she yells at the crack in the wall and tells them that they better fucking step up. And then eventually she just goes to the crack and says his name is the Doctor. And if you love him, you should help him. And I guess they hear her. It's unclear to me how this works. But he gets another power up. And
yeah, well, the crack in the wall goes away, but then it appears in the sky, and they send this regeneration energy to it.
I just mean, like, in terms of how they can hear through the crack, it's, I don't know if, like, on their side, are they just standing right up against another crack in their wall? Like, does it feel like they're only a foot away from one another? But there's, like, this impenetrable time barrier between them? Or not time, but like interspatial. I don't know. But whatever the case, he winds up getting this blast, and he has a pretty good speech, I thought, about how throughout your life, you're a bunch of different people, and that's okay, because you've got to move forward. You just can't forget who you were. And I will never forget the time when the Doctor was me. And I really enjoy that just from the perspective of this actor probably feeling that, you know. Yeah. I'll never forget a day of this.
It's kind of like David Tennant chose to leave. You know, he made the deal. It's not like they were like, okay, we're done with you, we're going to switch to another actor. He was like, it's time for me to move on. But one of the last things he says as 10 is, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And that was very heartfelt, because while he made the decision, he loved being a part of the show and he loved playing that character. So then to give Matt Smith this, like, I will never forget this time is a nice send-off.
Yeah, that was really sweet. Like it felt very heartfelt, and like he was sort of winking a little bit at the camera, but not in a way that undermined the performance. It was much more like, you guys all get it.
It enhances the performance.
Yeah.
And even like when he's saying goodbye to Clara, And it's really heartfelt. And it feels like a little goodbye between them.
Yeah, definitely. I really feel bad for Clara, too, because she sees him and he's young again. And she clearly feels like, oh, sweet, this all worked, because she thinks that's it. Now he's back to himself and we're done. And she doesn't understand that there's like another change coming. And his transformation into the next Doctor is abrupt. It's always taken a long time in the past. And instead, this time, he basically throws his head back, stands up straight again, and there he is, the new guy. It's out of nowhere.
Well, we see the, like, sort of energy streaming out of his hands and his head when he's up on the clock tower, which you think is when he's regenerating. And it kind of is, but I don't know if, like, this new regeneration cycle now means that the regeneration process is different. Because when she sees him as young again, he says it's just the reset.
Right.
And then it's like there's a couple of things that happened. He knows he's going to change. He sees, like, little Amy and says Amelia, and she's like, who's Amelia? And he's like, the first face this face saw. And then he sees adult Amy briefly, and it's like he had to say goodbye, and then changes.
Yeah, it's the before moment is drawn out much more, and the actual physical part is very, very slow, or very, very quick. She calls him Raggedy Man. I'm looking at her trying to detect that it's a wig, but can't really tell at all. Not a bit. And not with him either. Not really. And yeah, I love that the last act before he transforms is to take off and drop the bow tie. That's it. And then all of a sudden, boom. Felt right. I liked it. This guy and his eyes. He is amazing. He looks like an owl. Or like, you know what he looks like? A little bit is that eagle Muppet. You know the one? Oh,
Sam the Eagle?
Yeah. Yeah, he kind of looks like Sam the Eagle in the eyebrow area. I am very curious to see what this guy is like. Because there is like a real intensity here.
Yes, he's got a much different energy. The first thing he says is, kidneys. I have new kidneys. I don't like the color.
Of your kidneys. Sorry, Clara. She was not ready for this.
And then he's like, do you know how to fly this thing?
I really am... Oh, look, I know you can't tell me. I don't know if I'm going to like if she winds up being his companion upcoming. We'll see. And I really do, like, part of me is like, I just didn't like what they did with Amy. So part of me wants to give them the chance to fix that.
You mean Clara?
Yes. Might be. But on the other hand, I would like a complete clean slate. Do you know what I mean? There's a part of me that does feel like, if we're going to get a new doctor, let's get a new companion also, like we've gotten. But I don't feel like too strong in either direction. I don't know.
I know you can't really get a good gauge on what he's like, because this is a very short appearance, but he definitely has a different energy.
Yeah.
Which could just be the regeneration, that could change. But based on what you've seen and what you've seen of Clara, if she's the companion, what do you think their dynamic is going to be?
I really don't know, because honestly, he is very intense, but the intensity isn't that different to me right now than from Matt Smith. When Matt Smith is first introduced, he's got a similarly erratic emergency situation kind of vibe to him. you know? I mean, he crawls out of the pool in the backyard and is like...
Yeah, they're always not really themselves yet.
Yeah.
When they first regenerate.
So I don't really know, because right now he still feels very similar, even though the expression on his face is like its own sort of piercing thing. The way he moves feels similarly Matt Smithy, Dick Van Dyke right now. So I don't know. I got nothing. I got no prediction on that.
According to an interview with Peter Capaldi and Jenna Coleman, Capaldi's first lines as a doctor were improvised. Coleman even described his outburst of kidneys as singing.
Okay, why not? Do what you like, sir. You're the damn doctor now. Nobody's going to tell you shit. Good for you.
I just like that was improvised because it feels very much like something the doctor would say, which makes me immediately believe that he knows what show he's on.
Okay, I get that. Yep.
Because this actor...
The vibe, the overall vibe, I think.
Yeah. At this point, I'd only seen him in one thing, which was a very small part as a scientist in World War Z, which he was memorable in. And I think he's memorable because he's got that face.
I don't remember him in that, weirdly, but I don't remember a lot of that movie, so that's probably not his fault at all.
Yeah. I mean, I had read the book, so going to see the movie, I was kind of mad.
Yeah.
And then I enjoyed the movie because it's actually a pretty fun zombie movie, if you don't think about it being called World War Z. So I did enjoy it, and I really liked a lot of the stuff they did in it as completely separate from what it's supposed to be based on. And I did remember him. And then he was really well known for this show called... Oh, shit, what was it called? It was this British show that was created by the guy who ended up creating Veep. And it was sort of the same thing, like a political show in the UK where he was incredibly foul-mouthed. Like, every other word he says is fuck. And I'd seen clips of that. And I was like, how's that guy going to be playing the doctor?
That's funny.
Because he has really intense energy on that show. And so then seeing him turn into the doctor here, I was like excited, but still like at a point where I was like, I'm going to give him a chance, but I'm kind of done.
Yeah.
And I think that affected how I watched the show going forward. And I don't know that I gave him a full chance.
Okay.
I was just curious and then, but also pretty checked out. So I've been rewatching this next season. I've been rewatching it pretty consistently. It's not bad, but I did want to bring something to you, which is a suggestion that was made from some of the listeners.
Okay.
That there are good episodes and really bad ones, apparently. And there's a list that someone made of like what would be considered essential episodes, inessential, and then like, yeah, this is a fun one. And they were wondering if we get to a point where you're like, look, I can't. If we went by just the episodes that people felt were essential.
I don't think I want to do that.
Okay.
It's just, Unspoiled just doesn't work that way. You gotta do everything or not do it, you know?
Okay.
And also, I don't, like, it's not that I don't trust the listeners to judge what's essential and what's not, but I don't trust that people who haven't come into this cold themselves very recently will completely have the perspective of knowing whether something is going to be confusing if I haven't seen something else before. Do you know what I mean? I feel like,
yes.
Speaking as somebody who is the spoiled host for certain other things, I will lose track of what happens when. And sometimes there'll be a detail that happens much sooner or in a different spot than I thought it did. And I don't want to risk winding up without crucial information because something got sort of like overlooked. And it wouldn't be anybody's fault, but that can happen. And considering how much of the show is like references to previous episodes or seasons, I feel like that's likely to happen.
I read through the list. It was posted on some website, and it went through like all of the new seasons. So I read through the whole list just to gauge, like, do I agree on earlier seasons where, like, do I agree that this is essential or skipped, or yeah, it's a fun romp, go ahead and watch it. And I did and I didn't. Like, there were times where I was like, but that's a really great episode, and you're saying maybe watch it.
Yeah.
And so the way I was looking at going forward is I'm going to watch all these episodes and then look back at that list if that was something you were interested in doing and see if I agree or disagree. Because maybe I would watch these episodes and be like, yeah, it's a maybe on their list, but I think it's super fun and she might really like it. Mm-hmm. Or it's a skip on their list, but I think it's great for completely different reasons. So I didn't have any opinion one way or the other. I just thought I would bring the suggestion to you to see what you thought.
Yeah, it's like I really understand the spirit behind it, because basically what people are trying to do is a preemptive damage control, right? Where they're like, look, we know that there's a likelihood she's not going to want to continue after this, or that. And we would like to make it easier. But I don't feel like that's accurate to the experience of watching the show. That's, a rewatch. That's something that you do when you've got the perspective and you know better. But the point of Unspoiled is for people to have the experience of viewing something for the first time over again. And that wouldn't be what it is. Yeah. So I appreciate the thought behind it and the effort that probably went into like making the list. But it does, like, I feel like that's a slippery slope. Yeah. Also,
it would definitely set a precedent where if there's something else that you're not enjoying, people would be like, well, for Doctor Who you did this, so why don't you just do this again?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main things that I get very, like, touchy about, is setting precedents on anything that I haven't done before, because you guys don't know how quickly things spiral out of control when you make an exception on something one time or another. Yeah.
I will say, I think I've watched like 6 or 7 episodes. It's not bad. I am enjoying this new Doctor a lot more than I did before, because I've stopped being salty about it. So I've gone into it with a much more open mind, and I have been enjoying him. So I would say let's give it a fair shot and see.
Okay. Quickly, before we wrap up, I have not done a new patron shout out in a long time. And so the list of new patrons has grown to the degree that I won't do them all in one episode, because that will be very long. But I'm going to do from the last time that I mentioned new patrons, which is in July, everybody.
Look, time doesn't matter.
July. And we are going to then eventually catch up. So I'm sorry. I didn't even, like, I don't know what happened. I think somebody asked me somewhat recently, like, hey, when you do the shout out for me, will you do it on Dresden Files? Because that's the one I listen to. And all of a sudden, all of my, like, alarm bells started to go off as I realized that I haven't done one in so long that I literally can't remember when it was. And sure enough, I checked, and it was a long while back. So, hello from July to Renee John, Dave G, Matthew Beline, Dave Juan, Jonas Suchi, Sarah Decker, Tom, Ryan Powers, Malika Chakravarti. And some of you may have been patrons for a while, and it's just showing that you signed up then because you, like, renewed your pledge somehow. Forgive me. It's hard to tell. Monica Hargress, Donald Adia, Sam, Sidney R., Ryan Birchfield, James H. Winston, Desiree Bois, Joshua Simpson, Sadie Sidicario, Leah Frankel, Lisa Mears, Aidan Slade, Carly Morals, Jacqueline Hamlin, D. Freden, hopefully, Kayla McCarthy, Meet Nordkill, Nina, Amanda Chincio, Crystal Nielsen, Jillian McIsaac, Barbie Paget, Sal D'Souza, Ben Steele, Sawyer Nordquist, Nicole Birmingham, Mona Arnberg, Emma Fingler, Mickey, and Sam Howell. And that has gotten us current to October 1st.
Wow.
So,
welcome, guys.
Yes. Apologies, everyone. And I will try to do better about this. This is something that I really had let slide because of how difficult it was with the new Patreon system. And I just got so frustrated that I sort of was like, I'll figure it out eventually. And completely fell out of the habit of it. And now Patreon has sort of addressed some of the frustration, and they haven't completely fixed it, but it's definitely better than it was. So it will be easier once I have caught up to do this more consistently every episode and not have it just be... It's still hard to tell sometimes, but if I don't wait too long, it's easier to tell than it... At the moment, telling if somebody signed up back in July for the first time or not is not easy, because that was July. And so it's unsurprising that data isn't super helpful. But that's my fault, not Patreon. So hopefully from now on I will be more consistent. And if not, Jamie, you can give me a prod and be like, do we have any patrons, Natasha? And I'll be like, oh shit, vamp, as I quickly click around with my very loud mouse. Do we have any new reviews?
We do.
Hey!
It was from like 21 days ago, and when I looked it up yesterday, I was like, wait, is that true? And I didn't realize until I logged onto Skype today that we haven't spoken since the 17th of December. And I sent you a message and was like, is that true? Was it before Christmas?
Yep.
Yeah. So this review is strongly recommend 5 stars by maybe ...
Nice.
from the US.
I like it. Mysterious.
This has been an interesting ride. I am not an OG Whovian from childhood, but I sort of fell into watching it during uni and enjoyed it for what it was. Natasha has had thoughts eerily similar to mine when I first watched the show, even though I was binging it and she watches it week to week. I appreciate her articulating what it was that made me like certain eras more or less, and it's very interesting to hear the show dissected in such a constructive manner. Jamie being an earlier fan is super fun because she can offer her POV as the show is coming out. Plus, it's fascinating to hear the change in her perspective this time around. As an 11th girl myself, it's been very satisfying. While I tire of Moffat's shenanigans, I always found it bizarre that so many Whovians held up the Davies era as superior when it felt like they fell for many of the same traps and plot holes are practically in the DW bylaws. It's just that Moffat was more personally irritating.
I like it.
I'm very interested in what both will think of 12, as I was pretty involved with the fandom back then. I hope it's enjoyable enough, though. DW as a whole can be pretty uneven, and these ladies are great companions, I had to do it, to have when reliving the ups and downs of the show. Listen for the insightful commentary and delightful tangents. Bonus, they're Donna and Rory stans, so clearly they have great taste.
I appreciate this. It is very encouraging to hear that people don't mind me like ripping things apart a bit. I really need to be reassured that that's okay, because I just sometimes feel like such a downer that I'm like, who wants to hear this? Who likes this? I'm such a bummer. And I appreciate when a fandom is resilient to criticism, because some fandoms don't like it. Let me tell you guys.
Yeah.
Some fandoms don't respond well to not just fawning over whatever comes out under that property's title.
Star Wars.
Listen, Even like Dresden Files, people can be that way a bit. And it's not like, that's all one writer, at least, you know? But with Star Wars, it's like, guys, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I just really appreciate that because it makes me feel a little bit reassured. You know, I like what I do and I try and be honest, but I am not always so sure I'm doing the right thing, you know?
Well, I mean, we're trying our best. At least we're being honest about, like, guys, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And we are taking the feedback that, like, yeah, let's go into it with an open mind. Let's give it a try. And if we still are, like, every week at a point where we're like, I don't even know what to say about this, it sucked, then, you know, we'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I feel like part of my wanting to quit the show initially was just because I don't want to ruin this for other people who like it.
Right.
So if people who like it are okay with it, then that's really like my biggest concern.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going into this with the intention to tear it apart.
No, not at all.
And that's a different thing. I've definitely listened to podcasts where I don't know why they're covering something they clearly hated from top to bottom. Yep. And it's not fun. At least we're, even if we're like, oh, I don't know, this just wasn't the best, we're trying to have fun talking about it regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is just sort of like a danger anytime. I mean, this is something that I fell into with Avatar Last Airbender when I covered that with Owen. Those interested can find that on the website. They're $1 an episode. It was the fundraiser for our wedding. And we're now covering Korra, and we're almost done with Korra, so we're considering what to do next. And the first thing that has been suggested and supported is Clone Wars, which we haven't firmly decided on, but we're like tossing around the idea. And, you know, Avatar is beloved. People just are so all about it. But it has some real problems. And it's just, we would get very self-conscious sometimes because we know that people are paying for those episodes specifically too. It's not like this is something that people can get access to for free. If they're patrons, they're getting other stuff. But they're paying just for that. And if we just don't like something and are very negative, it can feel like we're not giving people their money's worth. But really, they paid to hear our opinion. You know, they didn't pay to just like hear somebody love something. And maybe they didn't like it either, that particular episode. And so this is actually enjoyable. Even though we feel like we're being super negative, they're like, yes, thank you, exactly. You know, I don't know.
I'll give you the other side of the coin. Their binge mode was covering the Harry Potter books and also the movies. Like they would cover a book, then they would cover the movie, and then they would cover a book.
Right.
And, you know, you've seen the movies. They've got problems.
Yeah.
And there were people complaining that they weren't critical enough of the movies, that they were too positive about the movies. And it's like, so no one can fucking win.
If you guys have that feeling about the movie coverage of Binge Mode, may I recommend buying the episodes of me and Rashawn covering the movies, which are also available on the website? Because we hate those movies so much. And don't get me wrong, I still was like watching them for comfort up until JK outing herself as a super turf. And now I just can't watch them anymore. But
yeah,
we really did go hard against those. I mean, they were, that combined with our coverage of like Cursed Child, basically closed the book on all new content. And I went and watched Fantastic Beasts 2 by myself. I didn't even want to cover it. And I'm so glad I did, because I don't even know what we would have said about that movie. That movie is a complete disaster from start to finish. Like, there's no plot thread that really gets fully resolved or explained. There's like, everything's so inconsistent and all over the place, and they're trying to do 12 different things. None of them well. what a nightmare. So yeah, if you're looking for some harshness RE Harry Potter movies, go to unspoiledpodcast.com and scroll to the bottom, and you will see the complete episodes, I think, for sale for covering Harry Potter. I think for like $6, and I think there's 3 episodes that are like 2 hours each, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if I've ever listened to your coverage of the movies, to be honest.
No? They were.
I don't think so.
These episodes originally were rewards for people who donated to the GoFundMe for our trip. And we recorded them and kept it all like very exclusive. And then eventually people started to get in touch like long after the trip was over. And they were like, hey, I know I missed that, but I'd still love those episodes. Can I donate? And I finally was like, I should just put them up for sale. I don't know why I haven't done that.
Yeah, I donated to the GoFundMe, but I don't think I ever got around to actually listening to the movie episodes. I listened to your book coverage, but...
Yeah, here it is. This download link will be active for only 3 days. Right. I forgot I enabled that. So yeah, guys, when you buy this, you're going to want to download that shit right away. But yeah, $6 for all 3 I'm seeing here. So that's pretty good.
Is that all of the movies?
Yeah, it's the first episode's covering movies 1 through 3, then movies 4 through 6, and then the final episode's only covering 7 and 8, which are both Deathly Hallows split into 2 parts.
I may have to buy those because God, those movies fucking.
So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to mention that since you were saying that they were being accused of being too positive.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you can't please everyone all the time, and you can't worry about it when you do this. Like, I understand you wanting to because people are paying specifically, but you're not a dancing monkey, and it's your show.
It's my show.
That's right.
All right, well, cool. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this one up?
Happy New Year.
Indeed.
And...
Kind of. Sorry, guys.
It's been a rough couple of days.
You guys.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Let's just make it there.
I want to thank everybody for bearing with me while I took a bunch of time off because I got COVID, which is so stupid. But I really, like, you guys don't know how helpful it is to hear that people get it, you know, because there are times where I just feel like I'm letting everybody down by not producing. And, I really needed that time off.
You had COVID.
I know, but I like my symptoms weren't that bad. So part of me was like, I'll be fine. I'll just do it. But I kept underestimating how exhausted I would become by like the slightest thing, you know? Yeah. And that week I took off from everything except one day. I had 3 spoil me's booked, and that was the only thing I had all week. And I like went into it like, all right, I'm going to bust these out. By the end of that one day of 3 recordings, I passed out and like slept until like 1 a.m, whereupon I woke up and ate a piece of pizza and then went back to sleep until like 10 in the morning the next day. So that it's a good thing that I took that time off. I needed it. But at the time I was sort of like, I don't know if I really have to, you know? So thank you all very much for your support and constantly slapping me in the face and telling me to go to my room, which is how I think of it when you all tell me to take a break. All right, everybody. Thank you again so much for listening. We love you. And we will be seeing you next week with the start of season 8. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.